Capital Views is sponsored by Northrim Bank, Alaska Oil and Gas Association, ConocoPhillips, and Linden.
Hi, I'm Tim Bradner with Alaska Legislative Digest, and welcome today to Julie Decker, President of the Pacific Seafood Processors Association. And Julie, thanks for joining us.
You're welcome. Nice to be here. Thanks, Tim.
Julie, real quick, PSPA has been around for many years, but just refresh people, what the organization is and what you do.
Sure. PSPA is a trade association for the major seafood processors in the state. We've got shore-based facilities in 22 different communities, 50 different facilities across the state, everywhere from Ketchikan to Unalaska to Bristol Bay and beyond.
Well, that covers a broad area, and I know it's been around for a long time. The organization is one of the oldest trade associations in the state. Um, Julie, just to sort of, this is a question I think that's probably on everybody's mind. Seafood has been under pressure the last couple of years, and anecdotes or things are improving a little bit. But from your perspective, how do things look this year?
Yeah, the last couple of years have been difficult, which is when I hired on, I had no idea we would face the difficulties we have. It was, truly a perfect storm of circumstances coming out of COVID and market readjustments and inflation, increased interest rates. Russia entered the war in Ukraine, and a new sort of strategic cooperation we're seeing out of Russia, China, and North Korea. And all of these things combined to really hit us in 2023. But I will say that the industry itself really sort of doubled down on its strengths, looked at reorganizing and reinvestment, and took some serious actions over the last couple of years, as well as both the federal and state policymakers. So at the federal level, we saw significant USDA purchases of seafood when we had sort of an oversupply, as well as a ban on Russian seafood, both from Russia directly and also through China, which was being reprocessed in China and coming into the United States. So both of those directions have been banned. And what we've seen now as a result of that in the United States, there's no longer any Russian seafood. And we are starting to see the domestic market rebound, which is a positive sign. So it's bringing some stability to the seafood industry overall. However, 70% of Alaska seafood is exported. So export markets are still very important, and Russia still plays a role in those export markets, as well as a lot of uncertainty around trade and tariffs in the future. So I would say things are better, but not necessarily great. And so we're still looking to do more and work with our legislators. I will say the House just recently passed a resolution supporting an extension of the Russian seafood ban, which is excellent, as well as we saw the legislature and the governor put some extra money into ASME last year in order to focus on that domestic market and sort of securing that $400 million hole that existed when Russia wasn't allowed in the U.S. anymore. So these are some positive signs that are all working together to bring stability to the industry.
Julie, I should probably know this, but has the governor put money in for ASME this year also?
I don't think it's in the budget right now. We are, hoping for continued support in that area to again kind of continue this securing those markets. And so we'll see what happens. I know there's a lot of uncertainty around the budget, so we understand that. But anything that can be done, we are supportive.
Well, also, I guess it hadn't occurred to me that there was a time lapse to the Russia seafood ban, so it needs to be extended.
That's correct.
Now that was sort of news to me this spring, and also I hadn't realized there was kind of an organized collaboration. I knew there was collaboration between Russia and China, but also North Korea. Also, is this having an impact?
Yes, it's the laborers. They're using North Korean as laborers on both fishing vessels and in Chinese seafood processing facilities.
That's a little concerning. In any event, things are showing some signs of progress. The biggest sector in our seafood industry, though, is well, salmon is important. Just briefly, what's the outlook for the summer salmon season in terms of predicted harvests? And
Well, as you know, every region is quite different, and every species in every region is quite different. So I think overall we're hoping for a good season. We always do. That's why we're in this industry. And again, we're seeing positive signs in the domestic market for salmon. And so yeah, we're hopeful. And the two largest fisheries and most important fisheries to Alaska are salmon, which we talked about, and pollock. And salmon is the largest, number one for price, for value, and number two for volume. And then pollock is the opposite. Pollock is the number one for volume, and then the number two for value. So both those fisheries are really, really important as we look forward.
how, Julie, how is the pollock industry doing in terms of the harvests and projected sort of the economics of the whole industry? How are that's really important to us.
It is, and again, I think we're seeing some recovery in the domestic market, but internationally it's still challenging, and that competition head to head with Russia is challenging, as well as many people don't know this, but Alaska pollock is the species name in the Bering Sea, and therefore, when Russian pollock is sold in the EU, it is sold as Alaska pollock. And we are trying to push on that. We are pushing our policymakers to push the European policymakers and get some change to that. We actually did change a law in the United States a number of years ago, so that's not allowed in the United States. But we believe that it is very much confusing to consumers, if not misleading and on purpose. So that's an area where we certainly could use the differentiation.
Is that an EU issue? It just takes time to get the EU to change their labeling requirements.
Yes.
Well, all the good reasons to have good relations with the European Union. Well,
Yes.
Julie, thank you very much for joining us, and I look forward to talking more.
You're welcome. Thank you.